This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions. I just wanted to let you know before we start the podcast that I am doing an online podcast course, how to be able to create, get your guests, scale it and monetize it. So please do go to abmpodcastcourse.co.uk and go into the contact us bit. I'm looking for new people to be able to be a podcast creator and really to be able to develop their skills and knowledge into a podcast. So as I said, go to abmpodcastcourse.co.uk and sign up. Thanks. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and people in their career. We will delve into their journey to success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. This podcast will inspire and educate with great guests. Get ready to learn from others' successes and failures. Today we have something slightly different. We've got Andrew Miller here today, and Andrew's got his own podcast, which I'll let him introduce in a minute. And we're going to do a sort of trial, a test to have both of us talk about our journeys to where we are now. So hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good, Mark. Thank you. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting because, we had that little chat earlier on, and it's like we've got such similar backgrounds, similar journeys, but also differences. It's like, well, why? And both got the podcast. Why don't we just chat?
Yeah, exactly. Let's just try it and see if it works. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a total experiment, but that's what it's all about, isn't it? You've got to give stuff a go.
Absolutely.
So just to give the context from my point of view, my name's as you say, Andrew Miller, and I'm founder of Business Enjoyment. That's what I run, and I've got a podcast called the Tingle Zone. And similar to you, it says, what are the journeys that people been through that's led to what they do now? What's the thing that drives them? What's the thing that gives them that buzz and that motivation, gives them that tingle? And that's where the Tingle Zone comes from. And that's what that's about. So I run. So I'm a coach and qualified in that space. And I obviously do the usual sort of things that coaches do, but I also run a number of discussion groups. I think it's probably the best phrase for them, called breathing spaces, which are kind of confidential spaces where people get together and we explore what it actually means to have enjoyment in your business. You might be familiar with like the peer-to-peer mastermind groups and group coaching programs. They're a lot more looser and flexible than that. They're a different kind of thing. And one person called them the AA meeting for business owners, because it's an opportunity just to, So
just tell me a little bit more about that. So it's the breathing zone. So you give
breathing space.
Apologies, breathing space. So you give your people that you've invited space. Are there different types of breathing space?
Well, we have it's shifted with the lockdown. As you can imagine. So it used to be physical groups, and I used to have one in different geographical areas. So I'm based in Yorkshire, and I used to have one in Wetherby, one in Leeds, one in Barnsley, one in Huddersfield, one in Wakefield, etc. And it's a membership, but although other people can dip in and have a look, and it's not expensive, really cheap, but I would literally, like the AA sort of thing, circles, chairs in a circle. And within an overarching context, I would throw a question in or a thought or something within that context, within that theme, and we'll just get conversation going and see where it goes. And I just facilitate it and bring it out. Now, I've got a thing called the business enjoyment model, of which there are 6 different stages, and each of those groups works through those different stages and then comes back again. But within those different stages, you've got all different elements of business and personal development. So it's it's a continual learning process. It's not like a 6-month program that you do. It's people keep coming back, and I've had people coming for years. It's a space that come, and they've had, they've got their own coaches. Some of them are coaches. It's not a come in into my lair and I have got you. It's a space where people can get different viewpoints, think about things differently in a safe space.
And so it is like a mastermind in essence.
Mastermind. The key difference for me, and I went to lots of masterminds to make sure that it was different. Masterminds are really structured in the actual structure of the meeting. We have one person that's going to be on the hot seat, and then everybody goes in turns, and you've got 2 minutes to ask as many questions as you've got, and then you've got 2 minutes, and then you've got 2 minutes, and you're not allowed to give any opinions, and you're not allowed to give any. And now we're going to have and there's a process that every single mastermind group follows, and there's value in that. I'm not knocking it, but that's what that is. This is almost the opposite of that. It's like, who's got something to say? Bring it in. What do you think? How about you? Oh, I've got a different opinion. And in a good session, I can sit back and do absolutely nothing. And everybody, but it's still bringing that cross-pollination of views and whatever, but it's much more free-flowing, and people will bring what they need to bring in, and they'll come out with what they need to take out from it, rather than there being like one or two people get drilled and no one gets, everyone else sort of doesn't get so much. But yeah. So, but they're all they're all online now. That's the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
just
all on calls.
We can't meet in hotels. So.
Yeah.
So I'm rethinking exactly how that's going to look going forward. But
interesting. So let's just talk about your early career. So we realised when we were talking that we both. Well, I'd worked in the Big Four in two companies in PwC and KPMG, and I believe you worked in KPMG for a while as well. So just tell me a little bit about your sort of early career and how you got to where we are now, which is coaching and podcasting and various other things.
It's one of those things you think, how far do you want to go back? And I can start a story from when I was like 4 years old and how it built and shaped me and everything, but we'll cut out some of that stage. If we need to go back there, we can. Let's start jumping out of university, and essentially came out of university. This is, I'm a bit older than you, so this is mid-90s. And that was a couple of recessions ago. And came out. I was well qualified, first class master degree. I'd spent a year in France, so I was fluent in French, and came out thinking, right, okay, who wants me? Silence and tumbleweed drifted across. And as I say, recruitment was difficult in those days. There weren't many jobs, and I just drifted effectively. And the part of the problem was I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think this is part of the educational system, is that you just go on to the next level, and I did O levels, and GCSEs, and you just say, well, I'm good at these, so I'll do those at A levels, or I'm good at that, I'll do that at university. All right, let's keep going. Right, what am I doing now? Don't know. So I drifted, and basically by somehow my CV drifting across someone's desk, I got an interview. I got called out by an agency to go and have an interview with KPMG in their receiverships department. Right. And I didn't know who KPMG were, and I didn't know what a receivership was. So that's a good starting point for an interview. I turned up for the interview 15 minutes late because it was in Milton Keynes, and anyone that's been to Milton Keynes knows how easy it is to get lost, and I got lost in Milton Keynes. Right. But by a number of pure coincidences, they felt that it was their fault for not giving me clear enough directions. I'd come in the wrong door. They ended up apologising to me, which is a great start to it. So I turned up late, they were apologising to me. It looked like no one had actually looked at my CV before. They were just, right, so what is it you do? And the second interview, which I got, was held down the pub.
Oh.
And the hardest question I had to answer was, what do you want to drink? And I thought, I can cope with this. But it was in the world of insolvency and companies going. So I did train to become an accountant, but the core job is essentially when a company goes bust, and there's a lot of that going on at the moment, as we're familiar with, and has been seeing some big names. Basically, we take ownership of it. We take control of it, and it's real hands-on ownership. You don't just sit in the boardroom and make some strategic decisions. You're there in the mix of it, and you're counting stock, and you're arguing with customers and creditors and suppliers. And
it's a really interesting area because I had some sort of exposure to it. So I was global mobility. That was my area. I was global mobility tax. But a couple of people in the 08-09 credit crunch moved to insolvency and administration because of Lehman Brothers. So PwC took on Lehman Brothers as their client after they went into administration, and it actually took 4 years to break up the company and get things in the right space and the right place to actually then be able to sell it off and pay off the debtors and the creditors. So it was fascinating that it actually took as long as that. I was surprised because they were saying that we need to get the company in the right shape. How do we break it up? And so it was incredibly fascinating to hear stories of how they basically spent years in the Lehman Brothers offices while they were breaking up the company, which I think is an incredibly. It must be quite an intense. Did you have any large sort of, because you weren't based in London, were you? You've always been based outside of London.
I was Milton Keynes originally, and we were twinned with St Albans, so we were doing a lot of work there, and spent a couple of years in Australia, and then when I came back, went to Leeds. But I was in Secondment in London for a little bit, so I did a few London-based jobs. So in terms of big names, probably the biggest company I was involved with was Courts, if you remember the furniture store. Yeah. So that involved with that one. I was on the peripheral of things like Leeds United, and there was another company which will be forgotten now, but they used to be the major manufacturer of the Barber jackets, Barber jackets called Dunn & Co. Chiratatero took them over, and then they went bust and whatever. But the big names are normally a lot less interesting jobs.
Yes, I would agree.
Because they're so. I mean, like Courts, for example, you had the UK courts and you had the overseas courts, and they're all intertwined and connected. But also, there's a separate business going on. And as you say, it was just so slow and painful. Where you got one bit where you're trying to sort of manage what sofas you can get out and that kind of thing, but also having one eye on the overseas transactions and the legalities of how you separate those separate companies. There's so much going on. You end up becoming a little cog in a wheel. The fun jobs were the ones that you'll never have heard of, but will be a bread manufacturing plant. We did rock cakes. We did pet foods. We did a fashion designer, timber mills. It's a factory. You're in charge of it. Go.
Yeah. So from my point of view, the larger clients were always less fun because it was so process driven. So it was like, Mark, you do that. Jack, you do that. Paul, you do that. And you were given sort of designation when you of what the process you needed to look after. The smaller clients, you started to get involved in everything, on all aspects of it. And for me, sometimes, like, obviously, as a sort of younger person, like a junior, you need a sort of big client to sort of hang your hat on, in the sense of you need someone to earn with financials. You need something to earn a big amount, but it was nice at PwC. They actually gave me a little bit of a mixture as well, and they did give me those smaller clients where it was just basically me and maybe a senior manager on while I was a junior, and it was really good because you could see all aspects of the billing, of the risk management, of the tax return, of the mobility, the software. Because I ended up going into software, and my main sort of experience as a sort of consultant was in selling and implementing software, always in global mobility. But it was really fascinating. The software area was really fascinating because it kind of went against, like, almost counterculture of an accountancy firm. So we still needed to do timesheets because it was an old accountancy view that you basically charge per hour on what you do. Where in the software, you don't do that. You don't do consultancy in the same way. You're implementing software. You're resolving issues that are arising, but that's all part of the license fee that they get for a year's worth of service on that piece of software. So it always felt for me, working in the software area, a little bit different and a little bit sometimes. If you had someone really invested in you, in your business, you could get a real traction and get some really interesting sort of projects. But in the sort of about 8 years, 6, 7, 8 years of working in the software area, it really was a mix, because sometimes it was a very enjoyable experience, and then sometimes you were quite ostracized and quite separated from the main part of the global mobility team. The people who are doing tax returns or P11Ds or the from the pure tax perspective. And so for me, I really enjoyed it. I've got a fascination with software and with technology, so I enjoy it.
Were you into software and technology before you joined the thing, or did you get through that process?
Interestingly, not really. It was only I was doing the global mobility piece, and I had a really good line manager. She was amazing, like someone who really cared. And I would say if you're in a big four or in a large corporation, you can have a very, very excellent line manager, but you can also have a lot of crap as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of those things that I would say, if you're listening to this, I would fight for a really good line manager. And I would say, like, if you're struggling with that, then you should take it as it's your responsibility to get a good line manager. But anyway, so she was introduced me to the partner who's looking after the global mobility software. And we just started chatting, and we kind of had an interview, but it was just over coffee. And he said what I wanted to do, and I was quite ambitious at the time, wanted to move up the grades, and he definitely gave me some left field questions. I'm trying to think if I can remember any of them, but they were. He was trying to make me a little bit more outside my comfort zone. He thought that was where I needed to start, at least, which is good. And we got on very well. And as I said, we had a coffee, and then I met his boss, and we then went for a coffee again. And to be honest, it was the best bit of my Big Four journey, was working in that software team for 8 years, and I really enjoyed it. I was able to specialize in sort of two areas. One was equity calculations for people that have been given equity by the corporations, and sort of what was very, very hot, and probably still, well, less so now because of COVID, but it's business travel and working with teams who are traveling all the time. And so, yeah, from a journey point of view, it was a sort of indirect way of getting into software. And now I sort of my coaching, I work not primarily, but sort of edge towards people who want to build software companies and want to do the startup on software. Not necessarily, I'm not a big one. My coaching is based upon building a sustainable and successful business. And that doesn't mean that you take on lots of debt and lots of equity for your business. I would prefer my clients to start with a minimal viable product, a small section, and get that working. And then when you're thinking about scaling, then that's where you might give up equity, but you don't want to give up equity to your business too soon. So I'm very careful with that. And people see the idea of the sort of Facebook sort of model, and that kind of it does work in Silicon Valley, but it doesn't necessarily work everywhere else. And I would prefer people to take a little bit longer and still get there, but just take a little bit longer on getting the grounding on the business first and get a business model. Because let's be honest, for a long time, Facebook didn't even have a business model of how to make money. They just knew it was a good idea. And And what I try and bring onto my clients is that you need to think about your sales and marketing. You need to think about your strategy for your business. Where is the money making part of your business, and build that. So that's incredibly important.
I mean, what comes up for me there, and it will probably reflect something we get to later on, but it's the danger of the phrase we often hear in coaching or any sort of business sort of development about success leaves footprints. And there's this big onus. Look at people who've been successful and follow them. And I get that. I'm not dismissing that as a thing, but it also can lead you down traps. So as you just said there with Facebook, for example, and Amazon's similar, and whatever, there's all these models that did not make money for ages, a huge amount of risk.
Yeah,
and they needed whatever support they needed to do to get there, and the results came much later on.
Yeah,
that is not something you would necessarily put down as your opening gambit on how you're going to create your business model. It's not necessarily something to follow. You can pick some bits out, but it's dangerous to actually follow something, because there will be just as many people who've done exactly the same model and crashed and burnt and.
And I think outside of Silicon Valley, that it's been a massive failure for a lot of businesses. I would actually just take you just maybe correct slightly on Amazon. Amazon's slightly different because Amazon started as a book store online, and he niched very, very early on to bookstore. And also I'm sure they did have VC money. I'm sure they did have venture capital money that went into it, but he for a long time took very little money as a salary and invested everything back into his business, into the infrastructure, into the expanding from books to basically everything now that Amazon now supplies.
Yeah. So, and the point I was making was that, Amazon made no money at all for years.
True.
That was the bit of that I was meaning, not the actual detail, but to take your point. But, Facebook, Amazon, Google even, for years, no money.
Yeah.
And yet they were valued at huge amounts on the stock exchange. And now people know why. But at the time it was like, but you're making a loss every year. Huge loss.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Like, I would never suggest people take those sorts of gambles, take those sorts of risks. Because I like the people who I'm working with, as they are entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs who have a side hustle that they want to build into a business, and whether it's either a full-time business that they embed themselves in, or whether it's always going to be a sort of side hustle until it gets to a certain size. People I work with are just trying to. It's just what I work them through is the 7 stages, which is essentially from the setup to their dream team, to the people they need to make it work. And then there's early market research, and then you go into sort of the launch phase, and then you go into sales and marketing again, and tweaking what you've done and understanding where you go. And then you hopefully, after going through these 7 stages, you've got at the end a business which is making a bit of money. And whether I work within different areas, different industries, not exclusively software, but sort of my sort of specialism, I suppose, is software. And it's really important for people to get the bedrocks, the building blocks of business in place, whether it's a compliance thing like setting up your business and making sure you do it on Companies House and your business accounts, to actually the side of the launch and how you launch a business. And do you do large fanfares? Do you do a more beta tester, and you just get some clients who test for you, and you can build the software that way. And I would never. We were actually talking with one of my clients, and he was saying, like, well, who are the people? If I was wanting to employ, let's just say money's no object, I employed 5 people now. Who would I employ? And I thought it was a really interesting question, because at an early stage, if you've got a little bit of money and you're thinking, oh, who do I employ? I was saying to him, like, you want generalists. You want people who can sort of do a little bit of sales and marketing, a little bit of finance, like they cover multiple roles, because it's not until you scale a business and people are designated very defined roles do you ever get to that point. You want people to be a little bit of this and a little bit of that, or outsource to Philippines, India, wherever, was the other option that I gave him. And I think it's an interesting one, because if I was sort of from the sort of Mark Zuckerberg rule of thumb, I would be saying, look, go out, get venture capital money or seed investment, bring in hundreds of thousands of pounds, build your company, employ people. But I think that's irresponsible. I think it is a business model that can work, obviously has worked, but I think it also depends very much on the type of business that it is that you're working with,
and that's the key thing: type is and the type of person. So it's very much horses for courses. So these successes that we've seen are at the extreme. You got maybe an element of luck, but the type of person, the type of thing they've got, it's taken a while in some cases to face it, to find out what it even is. Yes. They're still trying to work out what it is in many ways underneath it all. And but these are the anomalies. Now that doesn't stop somebody wanting to go for that if that route works for them and they've got the backing. And if you've got someone that is prepared to put money into your business and you're happy with the deal, and they're aware of the risk, and everyone's aware of all the upsides and downsides, and they want to go with it, you go with it. That's fine. I mean, I wouldn't say no to stop anybody as long as they felt that was the right thing to do. But it's when people look at these things and saying that's the way I have to do it.
Yeah.
And there is no have to do about anything.
Have you read the book about Netflix, about the owner, the person starting it? It's called something. What's it called? It's Mark. Let me just get this, because I read it relatively recently, and it's really fascinating, because That Will Never Work by Mark Randolph, and him and his co-owner set up Netflix. And it was really interesting hearing him talk about the early set of the business, where there was your core 5 or 6 people, and essentially at Netflix originally was mail order DVDs.
I remember it.
Yeah.
I was looking at it and thinking, what? So I've got to decide what film I want in a week's time. I need to send off for that film, get it, and then weird, and it comes to the post. And what happens? Do I post it back? And I never used it, but it was. I remember it. Yeah.
So what was really interesting was he was very influential. This Mark Randolph was really influential at the early stages of the business, and he became CEO. And there was another guy who part of the story, which the name's escaping me, who brought in as chairman and sort of running the operational side. And what was really fascinating was the company grew bigger than what the narrator, Mark Randolph, could actually implement. He was an ideas man. He was there to bring up the new innovation for the business. When actually it got to a point, once we started being streaming and away from the DVDs, it needed processes, and it needed to build a company which were hundreds, if not thousands, of people part of their business. And he wasn't very good at that. He took a step away after it went to IPO. He took 6 months to basically remove himself from the business. And actually, what was really nice was at the end of the story, he's like, and I've now gone and set up other businesses or worked with people who have set up other businesses. What I enjoy is the early doors, the early stages of the business. The processes of a big business is no interest to me. I'm not very good at it. I don't like doing it. And it was really fascinating, because for me, that was ultimate sort of self-reflection and sort of understand emotional intelligence about yourself, to realize that actually something that you created with an idea with you and your business partner, you actually have to take a step away, because it's not right for him. And I think I very much sort of can relate to that, because the early stages of businesses are really exciting. They're really you're firefighting, you're dealing with issues, you're trying to get new clients. It's this whole melee of sort of different interests and different exciting things that are coming. And I actually really enjoy that. And that's why the majority of people that I coach I do coach other people who are in careers, but that's why my coaching program, which I'm funneling a lot of time, money, and effort into, is basically for early stage investors, because that is what is really exciting, working out those sorts of issues and problems as you go along.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
It's interesting because I pick them up at a different stage.
Okay.
I go with people who have been in business for a while and kind of have lost that buzz, lost that sort of excitement, and have forgotten why they got into it in the first place.
Right.
And that's the whole sort of concept, one of the concepts around business enjoyment. You know, it can easily slip into becoming a bit of a job, or you doing the thing you love, but all the other stuff gets around you, and it's like, hang on, we should be enjoying what we do. That's the prime objective for a small business. Yes, you've got to make some money. I totally get that. Insolvency practitioner here, the money is base level importance, big tick, not against money in any way, shape or form, but we've got to remember all the other bits that need to come with it, and they easily get lost along the way. Now, if we can get it instilled and clear at the beginning, brilliant.
Well, it's interesting because the biggest thing for me is, and what I'm conscious of my life, is not making my entrepreneurial endeavors, my businesses, into a job.
Yes.
That just isn't what I want to be doing at the moment. Like, if I was building a business that you're hiring hundreds of people rather than a few people, I would be, it'd be a different technique, a different skill set. But I'm enjoying the freedom, or the additional freedom that I have, and therefore I would be really resentful of a business of mine that I would have to long term have to turn into a job. That isn't where I want to be at the moment. And maybe that's a little bit because I want to be self-employed rather than owning a big business. And it's interesting, since I've given up my job, I've sort of set up 3 businesses. And this is why I think I'm good at the coaching side of early stage entrepreneurs, is because that's what I've done and that's what I've been through, and I understand the pressures, the pressures of family, the pressures of the job, or the career, or the business. And so I think it's important people have fun. And you were saying that enjoying what they do is super important to business, especially if it's your own business. You want to, and do you advise people to step away from their business to let the next generation or employ people to take over the business?
Yeah, careful my language here. I mean, I do float around between. I'll move away less from advice, just more towards the coaching, maybe, because it's going to be different for each individual kind of thing.
Yeah,
but that doesn't stop me at times saying things. But so I'll skirt around coaching, mentoring, consulting, whatever needed at the time to a certain extent. But the truth is, there's no hard and fast rules, as I said before. So it will depend on the individual. I buy into the things that you're sort of inferring, and then there's plenty of books about it. And what I believe for myself is, if you get it right, then it's, as you say, it's not a job. It's just part of your way of life, kind of thing. So from my point of view, when I left KPMG, I consider that the point that I retired. So I have retired. and are now doing what I want to do in my retirement. So I'm not thinking of a point where this is a point where it's going to stop. It stops pretty much when I'm in the ground, that's because it's part of who I am. And if you can get to that point, you don't step away. You can reduce it. You got to look after yourself. But then there's other people where it's like, yeah, absolutely, it is going to stop. It's got to stop at a point. You can only do it so far. So what's next? What happens after that? If you sell your business, if you win the lottery, if you do all these sort of things, right? Okay, you do your world tours and you read all the books and whatever you want to do. Got all the time in the world. You're going to get bored. So you're going to have to create something. So why don't we look at that? And why don't you start doing that now?
Well, just on that, just to slightly take us off of business, because I think it's an important thing that doesn't often come up. So health-wise, so I have no idea about your health history at all. But interestingly, you said something about like when you might want to step away because of age or whatever. Do you find health is a factor for your decision making with your businesses?
It's got to be. It's part of it. So, my business enjoyment model is essentially based around Maslow. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy. Yeah. And at the base level, it's feeling safe. That's one of the things that we'll have in the breathing spaces, and okay. Now within that, there's a number of different things. There is making sure you got enough money to pay the bills. Again, insolvency practitioner, it's really important. You got to take that worry away. But then there's also your physical health and your mental health. These are all parts of feeling safe. If you don't have those grounding things in place, or then everything else falls by the wayside. Yeah. So physical health, mental health. Yeah, now that doesn't mean I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a PT, whatever. But we kind of know where we are. Yes. And if we're not where we want to be, let's do something about it.
It's an interesting one because I've been going to the gym for probably about 4 years, and I flip between going like 3-4 times a week to sometimes no times a week, and I always think to myself that I would once I quit my job, that I would have this freedom to be able to go for a run when I wanted, or go to the gym, or walk the dog, or be active, be open to that. And to be honest, doing all right on it. If I'm honest, there's some times where I've just gone, right, I'm going to go and take the dog for an hour's walk. Whatever happens, I'll have my phone on me. So if the world does explode, I'll know that it's exploded. But I kind of think I want to make sure that I'm more active, and the scourge of my generation is sitting in front of computer screens for hours upon hours upon hours and not moving enough. And I've got something on my watch which tells me every hour or so that I don't move. It gives me a buzz and says you should be standing up or walking about. So, but I always think that health is something that a lot of people don't prioritize in business, and they'll sort of hustle and grind. I've got to be at my desk 14 hours a day, 15 hours a day. I've got to grind and hustle, and I'll eat pizza and I'll do you know what I mean? Like, it's just this sort of very American styles. Like,
okay, and I will say there's a touch of toxic masculinity in there as well.
Yes.
And I suspect Big Four's probably at one side of the spectrum on that. So, I mean, I don't know what your experiences are, but, it would be the kind of thing, certainly my experiences across the board. There are some times you're doing some long hours, working through the night and all this kind of thing. And, it was a bit of a badge of honor that you'd work through the night, you get the pizzas in, you work hard, come on, guys, then you go out and have a few drinks afterwards. It's very Boise kind of man sort of whatever. And, if you then brought in a leafy salad and had a tonic water and all that kind of stuff, it was whatever. Now, I think times have changed so much since I was back then. I mean, you've got to remember I'm 10 years out of out of the company, and it was probably 20, 30 years ago, that sort of thing. So I'm talking a kind of a yesteryear. So I think we are now living in a time where it's much more acceptable to have the conversations, whereas actually now I'm being sensible about what I eat. Mental health is now high up on the topic of conversations in any environment, particularly what's been happening with lockdown and that kind of stuff. So it's still not there yet, but it's the doors are open for people to have those conversations a lot more easily now than 15 years ago.
Yeah. So what we did when I was working from home with KPMG was we would have daily calls, and that actually moved from daily calls to 3 days a week to 2 days a week. And it would just be half an hour at 4:00. And we would, all of us in the team, in the immediate team, so it was probably about 14, 15, 16 of us, would jump on a call. And sometimes it was very work focused. Sometimes it was just a chat and just sort of water cooler sort of conversation of how things are going. And I did think that was well designed and well planned, because that there were there were some people that were very, very isolated, and they were living on their own and were not able to go out. There were people that were shielding because of family members. There was people who were in jobs, were in joint houses, and they literally lived with their housemate, and that was it. And I think it was well planned that they brought that in as a thing for people to have that space to be able to have those conversations. And I would imagine even when I started, so I started at in the Big Four, probably I think it was 2007, 2006, 2007, something like that. And even then, pre-credit crunch, it was still quite Boise, and it was still quite, as you say, like the badge of honor that you work till midnight, and you have your pizzas brought in, and they used to do then. I don't know if they even do that now, but if you worked after a certain period, you could get a cab home, and it would be you could finance it to the company. I don't know if that still happens now, but yeah, there was definitely that in 6, 7, 8, 2006, 7, and 8. But I would say in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, mental health has become a major issue, as you've discussed, and sort of physical health has sort of reprioritized itself. But there still is an expectation of long hours. I think, like you say, sort of 9 till 5. I was at KPMG, not so much. I was able to manage my time a little bit better, but in PwC, I was working with the Indian team in the morning, and then I was working with West Coast US on a client. So I was covering like 3 time zones, so sort of Europe, India, and the US as well, and that was pretty difficult. That was pretty difficult to hit all those different time zones. And there was I believe that you have to work hard at certain times. You don't want to burn out, but you do need to understand that at times in your life, you're going to have to work your ass off to get where you want to be. And I think people who don't believe that are missing a trick. I don't want to be outworked by anyone, but equally I work smart, and I am efficient and productive, and little techniques that I use to make myself efficient and productive are very important to me. But equally, if I need to do something in the evening, then I'll work straight through the evening, even now, because I think you still need to work hard at certain peak periods.
I think this is, we're again broadening that out into a wider concept. There's what you've within that is in many ways the secret of life, if you like, or one of the secrets of life.
Did I stumble upon it? I
maybe not one of, because there's many, but. People, again, we've touched on it before, but people keep thinking that it's either this way or that way. It's black or white. It's A or B. It's left or right or whatever. And the truth is, everything is in the middle. And life is a contradiction all the way through, because you will. So talking to your point is what you will have the people that moan about, kids today, they've got no grit, they've got no drive. You've got to got to go for it. And it's absolutely right. There are times when you have just got to put that foot down, stick the proverbial nose to the grindstone, and get on with it. You've got to have that resilience. You've got to have that, grit to keep going and all the rest of it. The trouble is when you just have that.
Yes.
When you just have that, then there's no respite. So there's a flip side where you've got another point where you've got to say, whoa, slow down, take it easy, forgive, let yourself off the hook a little bit and have the time away. And each individual's got to find what works. And when you get really connected to, I think, what both of us do is try and work with our people to find the thing that really gets them excited and passionate and all the rest of it. And it then becomes a danger that you overwork because you're so excited about it. So it feels great, but actually you're at risk of damaging yourself. So every now and again, you need someone to, okay, time to have that time out and break and give yourself a spa treatment or whatever it needs to be. And then the flip side is the toxic side of it, of the tolerating, putting up with stuff. I'm not happy, but I know I've got to keep going because I've been told I've got to keep going. And then you're in real danger because you're forcing yourself into a space which isn't doing you any favors. So in every situation, when whatever it is, if someone says, what's the answer, it depends. Absolutely depends. There are some times you need A and there's other times you need B. And it's an art form trying to find what you need at what times. And it's down to each individual.
Yeah, and I also think it's, as you say, you do need to understand when you're starting to feel a bit frazzled and you need to take that step away. And that might be, as you say, a weekend away. It might be an evening out with the wife or girlfriend or whoever, and giving yourself space. Because one of the things for me that I think people don't do enough is reflect upon how they're getting on as a sort of self-development sort of point of view, because it's important to have emotional awareness for other people, but equally it's important that you have emotional awareness and intelligence of yourself and where you are in that sort of cycle or in that grade. And I think it's important that people do take that step away and you're going to just damage yourself. You're just going to hurt yourself if you keep on grinding until you frazzle, or even worse, something physical like a heart attack or something like that if you work too hard for too long. So I think it's really important that people have that awareness of taking the accelerator off and sort of stopping and just and one of the things that was nice that you said was give people a break, give yourself a break, because that's actually something I don't do very well. I don't celebrate my small wins, and it's something that I'm trying to consciously do more of, because I don't believe there's an end goal to all of this, especially in entrepreneurship. There's
Absolutely.
no end goal. And therefore you can just keep on going. So for me, I'm trying to sort of, when something positive happens, or I complete something, or I've done something that's added value, is to just recognize that. And that might be a glass of wine with the wife or whatever it is, and just sort of have that shared moment of appreciating yourself. Because I think so many people in business, as I say, just keep on grinding and keep on going, and they never take those small wins and enjoy them. And
I'd add to that and throw another thing in. And the thing is A, yes, celebrate your successes. B, celebrate your failures.
Yes.
Because coming into that sense of reflection, as you were talking about, when you look back and say, well, that went wrong, great. You can learn from that. Absolutely. Because we learn from the failures as much as we do from the successes. So as long as you can take that learning forward, then it's a win. But we again, we can fall into that trap of perfectionism and everything has to be right. And, oh, my God, I got it wrong. And we end up beating ourselves up. So flip it around. Actually, what is the learning from that? Great. I've learned something new today. I can put that forward going forward. My life will be better forevermore because of what I've learned.
What's the last thing that you learned?
The last thing that I learned. Well, we can go micro. I mean, a lot of things. I've learned about you. I've learned some of your story. I've learned the story of the guy from Netflix. In terms of learn for myself, in terms of which is really where your question's directed. I mean, it's a bit cliche to say it happens all the time, so it's hard to pick on one. So I will think of one that is apparent. But when I hold and you'll notice, you know this from coaching and whatever, is that you're helping somebody, but you learn at the same time as you go through the process.
Yeah. And
we had a discussion in one of our groups, and there was somebody who was in a particular space where they needed to have all of these qualifications, and it was a very regulated industry, effectively. I don't want to sort of go into too much detail in case they'll probably know who they are anyway. But and with that, the insurance and there's a lot of cost involved in it. And actually, the point where they were kind of, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm actually okay. And they have to do all the CPD and the extra studies and the jump through hoops and all this sort of stuff at a stage where they really didn't need to be doing it. They were experienced. They knew it. They were good at what they did. And that was the real experience. And we had a conversation about, well, do you actually need it? Well, yes, but only if I want to work with these people. Well, do you really want to work with them? Actually, I don't know. And we had a whole conversation about in a group whether it was absolutely necessary or not, and just reflect on it. And then afterwards, I sat and thought about it, and I thought, right, we're coming up to the end of the year. Come January, my renewal for the ACCA will come up.
Right.
Why the hell have I still got that? 10 years I've been out of KPMG now. I'm not going back into accountancy.
Are you sure?
I knew that at the time. It's never changed. It's not something I need in the back line. And I thought, why am I paying £200 to £300 a year for the privilege of having to come up for a reason doing CPD and filling in their forms every year? That's all I use it for. I don't even use the letters after my name. And so this is realization. So it's like, yeah, so I've resigned.
Well done.
An email saying, can I step out? And I said, oh, shame, but yeah, away you go. By the way, if you want to join in again, just pay your subs. Okay, so it was no barrier to leave anyway. But that's the sort of thing, is you're learning all the time.
Yeah, and for me, so I think my sort of angle for the question was, so I've gone through different training as a coach. I'm currently going through a training so I've got properties as well, and I'm going through a training program at the moment of a different property strategy. Essentially, being able to package deals for other people is essentially what the training is. And for me, this is probably, I don't know, like probably about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, I got an obsession by sort of self-development and sort of learning and building knowledge. And I sort of pride myself on that I'm learning maybe 2 things a year that are substantial step forwards in one area or another. And it's something that I challenge myself to do every year, because I think we, as a person, I want to feel like I'm moving forwards with skill sets, and yes, it could be a very structured MBA. I'm not going to do an MBA, but it could be something as structured as an MBA, or it could be something like what I'm doing with this deal sourcing. It's 4 modules of 3 hours each. So it's quite intensive of what they're actually teaching you. And for me, that's important. So I actually had booked. So I've arranged that, and I'm now going through that. I actually had arranged to go to 2 seminars this year, which obviously have been cancelled because of COVID. And for me, it's important to put a little bit of money aside every year to try and build my skill sets and knowledge and even if this deal packaging doesn't actually come into I set up a business to deal package, there'll be things that I will have learned on that course which will help me with my buy to lets, my single lets that I've got that I'm buying at the moment. So for me, it's a wider thing of sort of self-development, sort of self-learning, self-educating yourself. And do you because you're
I mean, starting tomorrow, I'm on a 3-day course to use speaking as a way of getting out there and getting the message out and creating something on the back of it and using speaking as a strategy. So that's a 3-day course next week. I'm currently, since May, I've been on a program to create a specific product for a specific audience and a specific course and a way of doing that, which is ongoing, principally at the top end of my. I'll just speak to it because I haven't actually touched on it, but explain my journey a little bit more. When I left KPMG, having realised I wasn't enjoying work anymore and exploring what I did want to do, when I first stepped into the space of coaching, it wasn't business enjoyment. That's come much later. But it was very much specifically focused on helping people who are going through insolvency deal with the emotional stress that creates.
Right.
There's still a huge amount of stigma attached to insolvency, both externally and self-generated. And the average person that goes bust is basically someone who's well-meaning, well-intended, doing the best that they can. Yes, you got your crook. Yes, you got your idiots, but most people are sensible people, and it can absolutely destroy them. So that's where I first started. That's what my first book was about. I started speaking to government about it, all this stuff in that space. And it just was, and did a load of stuff in there. But for me, it wasn't moving as much as it would do because it was at the time, whatever. So I started shifting and working with other people in other sort of situations. And this is when the learning came. It's like, well, I've been working with the people who've lost everything. You can understand why they're not in a great place. Yeah. And then you start speaking to people who've got businesses doing okay. And then they're not enjoying life either. And this is where it's like, well, what's the point of it? And the point is at the other end of it, you've got millionaires, people, business is absolutely sorted, no problem whatsoever. And I have met them and interviewed, and they're being treated for stress, anxiety, depression even, despite the fact that everything's working. And it's like, clearly the model's wrong. And that's where it comes from. And everything I've been doing over the last few years has been sort of focused in that middle bit of your standard average, small size business. Let's just make sure we're getting the right tracks in place. And I've never actually targeted the top end.
Okay.
It's always been sort of loosely there, but I've never actually said, hang on a sec, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let's really get you connected with something that's really important.
Yeah.
And take all those skills and all those ability and put it into something that means something to you rather than, getting stressed and worked up about stuff that doesn't mean anything to you. And that's the program that we're creating at the moment and developing. So, and obviously higher end ticket than the other things that I'm doing. But the money will go back into reinvest and drive and build the other stuff.
So how do you sort of structure your finances for your lifestyle, for your? I only ask is that I'm working with a business partner. We're actually setting up a podcast agency where we are having guests join our company, and they have either 24 interviews in a year or 48 interviews in a year, and we will set those interviews up. And I'm working with him, and he was this was a little while ago. So it went live about 2 weeks ago, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to him about business, and he's a very successful businessman. He's got 2 other businesses which are hugely successful. He's just building this with me, and he's actually building a coaching practice as well. And he said to me, because he uses a Ramit Sethi. Have you read Ramit Sethi's book about personal finance? Essentially, it's kind of like you set up a business, set up an asset that generates income, which then pays for something. So it's either paying for your house or your car or your lifestyle or whatever it is. And so I was talking to him about this, and we were getting to know each other before we went into business, and just sort of, and then we both sort of bonded over this. And I think this is one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs sometimes is, as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, your earnings are spike some months, drop off some other months. You got to juggle money around to pay the food, the lifestyle, the car, the house, whatever it is. How do you sort of structure your sort of finances?
I would recommend people reading 2 books or looking up 2 things, and I'd sort of do a mishmash between them. I don't follow them explicitly, but not far off. One of them is Profit First, if you've read that book, and do not expect me to pronounce it, but it's Mike Michalowski or something like that. Okay. Broad brush, keep it simple. If you take 10% of everything that comes in and put it in a separate account, or 5% or 10%, whatever like that, there's more convoluted than that, and about reducing costs and to balance it and how you can, what you do every year and everything. But if you skim off the top straight away, then you will make it work with what's beneath, and then you create a pot as you go through, which is going to be a reserve fund or a play fund or whatever it might be. So in the business side. On the personal side, if you read the I shorten it to Millionaire Mindset, the T. Harv Eker book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And it's easy to get free tickets or low cost tickets for the intensives they run in London when these sort of things are allowed to kick off again, which are essentially their opportunity to flog you other stuff. But it's actually really, powerful couple of days. But the jar system, and you separate your money into different sections. So you have different accounts for serving different things. So it's similar to what you're talking about. And you have the bulk of it goes to pay the bills, but you put money to one side for having fun, for saving for the future, for saving for specific projects, for giving, for self-learning, and you separate them. So you have different accounts with different purposes and work in different ways. So those would be the 2 books I would recommend people have a look at and pull out what works for them, or give it a go. Try stuff and make it work for you.
And that's what I've done. I've set up different business accounts and different accounts that are for. So we're now ploughing into the Christmas fund that that me and my wife created specifically to pay for Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. We a little bit. We created our own ones. We created one for holidays, one for annual costs, because every time it comes first, Christmas and January, big bills come through the roof. All the presents, all the insurances, everything gets renewed on the 1st of January. So if you put money to one side,
January's a horrible month, isn't it?
No one's working with you, so income drops, costs go up. So you put it away earlier on. And
it's interesting. One of the business accounts that I've set up actually has an ability to separate your part of your money, like you're saying, like a pot, into a tax pot.
Yes.
And check those things out, because there's some nice little techniques that you can do with business accounts of being able to do that. So that's one of the accounts I've set up, this tax pot. So 20% of everything that I'm earning will be put aside for the tax return, corporation tax return later on down the line. So I think it's a good model. It sounds it's very similar to what Ramit Sethi is, which is essentially create these little pots that you can use for different things. But equally, I would imagine that something like Profit First or even the Millionaire Mindset, you do need to give yourself a little fund for whether that's going out.
Yeah, this is you have the play jar, as they call it in the Millionaire Mindset, and the rules with that is you put money to it throughout the month, and you have to spend it.
Right.
So if it's 5% or 10% of whatever comes in throughout the month or whatever it is, you have to spend it. Nothing left at the end. So we have a play day every month, and where it's like no work, no whatever. Let's just make sure
that we're doing something. If you know, when the treats sort of concept's restricted now because we're in tier 3 and there's not much we can do. But even if it's just playing video games or watching films or whatever it might be, or getting something nice in, but treat yourself. That's the point. You've got to treat yourself. Otherwise, your inner child gets grumpy and you start resenting what you're doing and all this sort of stuff. So, yeah.
So what have you got planned for the future? You're saying you've got another program coming.
Well, I'm restructuring I've got this Find Your Purpose program, which I want to really get working on next year, targeting people who've been successful but aren't feeling the buzz. I'm reshaping the breathing spaces to sort of become more suitable for online, because the original concept was I had my 6 physical groups, 6 different themes, and I could run that, create that hub, but then replicate that around the country and around the world, so that it'd be you, for example, if you wanted to, I'd work with you to set your own version up and that sort of thing. It doesn't work quite the same way online, so I'm just thinking about I've got some ideas. I'm just going to flesh through that. I also came up last month, a couple of weeks ago, and I'm exploring where that goes. So where business enjoyment wants to get to for me now is, but in essence, it's essentially I want every business owner to know that they've got an option, that it doesn't have to be like that. It can be like this, where actually you feel safe, you work with the right kind of people, you feel good about yourself, and you're driven towards this sort of purpose that really gives you a sense of satisfaction and meaning, and you can really, really enjoy what you do. And I want to create a space where all the tools and resources are available for you to be able to get it if you want it.
Right.
And I have this vision now of a website, but it doesn't look like a website. It looks like you're walking into Disney.
Okay.
Or Alton Towers, or Centre Parks, or whatever it is. So a central hub kind of thing, and you point and click on things. So there will be a bookstore, and you can go in there, and there's all the books that are recommended, and attached to the books are going to be courses and stuff to make sure you can actually implement the stuff. Yeah. And there's going to be the cinema, where there's going to be all the films that have been recommended and suggested. There's going to be the first aid thing, where there's a problem you can go to and help. I need help. There'll be the networking event. I want to have networking events which are 3D. So I don't just go on Zoom and have 200 people. I can actually see the cafe. I can see 2 people talking to each other, and I can click on them and say, can I come in and say hello? And then they invite you in, and you join that open too. And
it sounds very much VR related.
What was that very
VR? But
that's what the higher level. That's what I'd like the ocular goggles or whatever. And you can actually do it in 3D would be ideal. You'd need to have different levels depending. And the whole thing essentially behind the back of it it would have to be filtered and curated, shall we say. But every other people could have their stuff in there, as long as it fits in with the structure and fits in with the ethos and whatever it is. And so it'll be driven through affiliations effectively. Right. So it's me fronting it, but everybody behind. So you might have a course on startups, and for startups coming in, it's a low entry price, because startups need all the support they can get. There's going to be some free stuff. There's going to be a low cost course to get them up and running. There's going to be a higher power course to get to the next level. And when they get to a certain point, they can move up membership to an established business, and they get access to a few more things, and then that kind of thing. But I want it to feel like you're going into this, say, park with different roads and streets, and you can have affiliation alley where you get introduced to all the networking events and the other things, or it might be, and come and have a look at BNI, and they can have the stalls and whatever it might be. And but as long as there's some basic guidelines and ethos, it's restricted, so it's not overwhelming, and there's ways of making sure you can get vision out of it. So that's a longer term thing. That's gonna be built over time. But that's the idea of that.
That's ambitious.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's because the main thing is I want the measure of success to change. At the moment, the measure of success is how much money you make. Yeah. And that's wrong. It needs to be part of it, but it needs to incorporate. And in fact, in this space, I'm going to create a stock market, which is going to be based on something different. Don't know what it is yet, and we're working on it. But you can actually, so it to be depending on what you're doing for other people, what you're doing for people in the community, what you're doing for charity, will have an influence on
how you're. I don't want to call it a ranking. It's not that kind of thing, but because I don't want it to be, got to be careful. Anyway, that's the idea. Create a different stock market.
And VR is definitely. I think VR has the potential to disrupt in those sorts of environments, and I think it's, as I say, hugely ambitious. I think it has a really good ethos and a really good sort of thought behind how you can actually make that work, and I think it's where I always think VR and AR is very good from a so let's put it slightly differently. Just
to be total numpty, VR, virtual reality, got that. What's AR?
AR is augmented reality.
Right.
So it's sort of using your phone, using
Pokemon Go.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as a non-techie, I need to ask these questions.
That's fine. And I think it's a really good idea. The VR for me. So I probably about 2 or 3 years ago, went to a place in Camden, and they had a VR studio, things what they described, and they had 3 or 4 different places where VR was hooked up, and various different games. Essentially, it was gaming for VR, but and these sets were instead like you can get some like the sort of cheaper side. You can get things for £100, £150, but these were like fully installed like £1,000 sets where you had the hand controls as well as, and it was all linked to your shoulder, so your movement, etc. And it was really interesting and really good. And it was the fascinating thing was the games were fun. Some of them were quite basic looking, but there was like all the things with video games is if there's an essence of fun or enjoyment at what you're doing, you don't necessarily need the most up-to-date graphics to have a very enjoyable game. But what one of the people found, one of my colleagues found, heart surgery or whatever it was, there was an operation. And actually VR, I think, can be very, very useful for doctors or training doctors to cut a gallbladder or whatever heart operation, whatever it is. And so I think there is a space for VR. I don't think we've kind of defined where VR is going to fit in the next 10 years or 20 years. Huge steps forward have been made. Facebook have just bought Oculus or bought them about 2 years ago, and they're putting quite a bit of money in there. But I actually think there's a practical solution to VR as well. And some of the stuff you were sort of saying, like the whole idea is that I really thought it was quite fun that you could have a board meeting in a Parisian cafe. And you've all got your different sets. One's in London, one's in Berlin, one's in America, whatever. And you've all got these VR sets, and you're sitting in a Parisian cafe talking about your board meeting. Yeah. And I think that's quite fun. That could be quite a useful or enjoyable tool. Because you've got all the other end. You've got the end of Ready Player One, where you end up. Have you seen Ready Player One, the film?
I've not seen it. I'm aware of it. I've seen the trailers, but I've not.
Watch it. If you're even fascinated by a little bit on VR, go and watch it. It's brilliant. It's a Steven Spielberg film. It's an amazing film. But you've got that extreme where you're basically immersed yourself in VR and you're living your life in VR rather than the real world. And I don't think we're getting to that. There's no indication we're actually getting towards that at the moment.
I think that it will come because again, you watch a lot of these sort of fantasy science fiction films of the past and the stuff that comes through. I mean, the cliches that you look at Star Trek, and we've now got all of the communication tools. We can't beam people up yet or anything like that, but these things come through and. I'm thinking of now. You look at the Avengers films, where they will have the holograms of the people that are in other space. They have board meetings, with people in different spaces. Angel, I remember watching Angel and Buffy, and they had them in that. I think it was, and so the vision's there. So when people make it happen, bottom line, as technology improves, but the thing is what normally happens is, and well, you tell me, but my perception of it is as you go in with an intent
and you can create the thing that you want to create, but then something comes off of it you never thought was ever going to happen. And when you say people don't know what to do with it yet, it's because that thing hasn't found us yet.
Yeah.
It will come.
It's like Alexa as well. There is a B2C market for Amazon Alexa, but there's no B2B market at the moment. But there are people that are working on that, trying to work out how the best way to use that technology in a business setting, and sort of less, maybe you still have your laptops, but it's all enabled and you so yeah, technology is always moving forward, and it's moving forward faster and faster, and these things that might have taken 10-15 years are now taking a year, 18 months to really kick going. So I would say, yeah, that is one of the reasons I'm fascinated by technology, is the fact the pace of change we've got at the moment in technology is just is massive, and you need to, like, what was it, 1984, when Steve Jobs created the Macintosh, and had the advert for the 1984 that it would all be controlled by computers, and we would never have thought 20-30 years ago that everyone would be sitting with a laptop in front of them. Virtually everyone has a laptop or a desktop at home. So yeah, technology is an incredible tool. Well, I'm coming to, I think you're gone.
Well, I was just going to refer that question back to you, what your vision is.
So my vision, mine's a little bit more immediate. I've got a couple of early stage businesses. So as I was talking about the podcast agency, I've made a commitment with my business partner that for 6 months, I will be the sort of operations manager, the account manager of that business. So when we get clients, it will either be me or someone working below me that will be managing those engagements. So it's not where I want to be long term. It's very much a job within a business. But we both made commitments. He's made a commitment to get the clients in, get the leads generated in the sales side, and I've sort of taken the account management side. So I would like in 6 months' time to have a successful business that I could outsource or delegate to somebody. It's not something I'm passionate about it, but it's not like I need to do this. It's very much a business decision. So I want to set that up and get that up and running. The property business for me is very important. I've got to buy some more properties. I've got to extend that from a financial point of view, as well as something I want to do. And for me is just putting a lot of effort into getting the coaching business to a stage where it would be nice to have too many clients and I have to start setting up online content, webinars and sort of recordings of things, because so it's probably mainly focused on those three to get those established and more sustainable financially. Because I'm still relatively early doors. I've been doing entrepreneurial stuff. I've run a podcast course for a year, maybe even a little bit longer, where I teach people how to start podcasts. I've kind of split my time into 5 things. One is podcasting, one is podcast course, one is coaching, one is property, and one is this podcast agency. And I'm not taking anything else on.
That's fair enough.
It's a lot of things even for one person, but it's like someone messaged me on LinkedIn saying we've got an event next summer that hopefully will be going ahead. Would you showcase your businesses and turn up and talk to people and maybe do a presentation? And I had to turn it down, not necessarily that it wouldn't be a good advertising portal, but mainly because I just don't have the time to prepare for it, and I don't like doing things half-assed. I'd like to actually do them properly. So I actually turned that down quite recently, and a couple of people are telling me I need to write a book as well. I've never written a book, So I'm
don't write a book because you need to write a book. Work out why you want to write a book first.
Well, exactly. This is the thing, and I'm thinking about using my podcasts interviews. I've probably done 80 interviews now, 70 or 80 interviews, and maybe I'm sort of every so often brainstorming how I could get themes out of the podcast, which I could write the book about. So,
but who's it for, and what do you want it to do?
Exactly. I'm not.
You don't need to answer that, but that's what you want to. Well, you need to write a book. Great. Why?
Exactly. It's got to be for a purpose. It's got to be for a purpose to actually achieve. Right. One last thing. I think we're coming to the end of our time. I need to duck out soon. But I ask 6 questions to every person that I have on my podcast, and I want to do it with you, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, as long as I can ask you one question back.
Absolutely. Do you want to do your question first?
No, you go first.
Okay, so six quick fire questions that I want to ask you. What's the best piece of advice that you've been given?
That I've been given?
Yes.
Blimey. I'm useless at that because I never know where the information comes from. I forget. It just sort of melds into each other. Best bit of advice I've been given. I'm now trying to think of a specific thing I've been given rather than what my biggest learning is, because I don't know where it would have come from. So it depends what you want to get from it. But
what's your biggest learning? Because
ultimately it will come down to the fact that really none of it all matters. So what does matter is go and have fun.
Right.
Or you make it matter. That's the thing, you know.
What's the best decision you made?
Oh, leaving KPMG. No offense to KPMG. It was nothing about the company, nothing about the people. I was just in the wrong place.
Right. Who's helped you most in your career?
I'm going to be really, really sad, and it's a problem of mine, but me.
Okay.
Part of my problem throughout, and we didn't go into my sort of child. Well, I know exactly why and all the rest of it, but I've relied on myself too much.
Right.
And not relied on people. I've had coaches and I've had support and that kind of thing. So, but it's always come back down to me grasping things and doing stuff, and that's something I'm working to reverse.
Do you have any regrets?
No, never.
Cool. What are you most proud of?
Do a whole subject just on that, but and get all sort of philosophical. To answer the question and be specific, I will still say that probably my first book is probably the proudest, which was the one focused on helping people deal with insolvency. Interviews with people that had been through it, bringing my own experiences in, and at every single stage of everything going wrong, how to reconcile the mindset and some specific actions you can do. And whilst I've never had interaction with the specific persons involved, I have been told that it saved someone's life.
Oh, amazing!
So you know,
you can't do much more. Yeah. Than that. What does legacy mean to you?
Starting something for all the right reasons that means something to other people as well and continues without you.
Awesome. And then the last question is, where can people find you? So,
best thing to do is just businessenjoyment.com is my website. If you can't remember the website, just type business enjoyment into Google, it will come up. And contact details on there. You can download a free copy of my latest book, More Than Just Money. There's a link to my podcast on there. And obviously I'm on LinkedIn as well if people need to get me on there. But just business enjoyment.
Okay, awesome. Right, what's your question?
My question for you, sir, is what makes your bits tingle?
I think variety. So as I said, I've got 5 things that I'm working on, and to be honest, there could be another 2 or 3 that the ideas are not necessarily the problem. It's having enough time to execute, which is which is what I'm trying to prioritize at the moment. So startups, young businesses, helping people build a business is incredibly rewarding. And so for me, working with people to get their businesses up and running and making them sustainable and successful is gets me excited, gets me up every day. I just think it's the early stage business is such a minefield, and it's such a concern for people because most people just never do it. And they might even have a very good idea and they just don't do it. So what I'm trying to enable people to do is to set that up, even if it's just a side hustle. Nothing wrong with that. Bring in extra income. You can automate it or delegate it, and you can have a successful, sustainable business while you do maybe a job that you like or enjoy sections of it. So for me at the moment, and this is why setting up my own businesses have been so rewarding, is that I really get a buzz out of brainstorming and working things out. That it's interesting because in Big Four, and I will get to the point, but in Big Four, there were so many well-trodden paths that you can do, whether you're doing a report, whether you're doing an implementation of software, whether you're doing a tax return, whatever it is, there are well-trodden paths to how you do things. And don't get me wrong, what I've tried to do is systemize it and bring in a structure of how to set up a business. But every business needs something different than the other business. So what gets me excited is sitting there talking to people, or even on my own businesses, working out those things that don't actually have a well-trodden path. And you need to work out what that well-trodden path is for. So that for me is really exciting, is really interesting, and gets me tingling, to use your words, because you're creating something. It has been done before. Market research gives you a great balance of understanding, but essentially brainstorming and coming up with ideas that are not well-trodden paths is really exciting for me.
Brilliant. And corollary question. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so website, absolutebusinessmindset.com. That's got now links to the coaching, to the podcast course, to the podcasts. You can basically find most things. Podcastintroduction.com is the podcast agency, if anyone's interested to jump on that. Or LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably the best place for me, Mark Hayward. On LinkedIn, if anyone wants to direct message me, by all means, connect and strike up a conversation. If you're interested in the coaching or the business side, or if you just want, I'm regularly posting on LinkedIn now, thought leader sounds far too grand, but essentially I think I can add some value with my experiences and my knowledge to help people. So there's pretty much good content on LinkedIn on there as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Mark. Been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much. I think it's worked well. I think it's worked well.
And this is it. Whether it works or not, we're giving it a go and we try it.
Absolutely.
It's an experiment. We give it a go. I think it's good. The audience will dictate. It's just two people chatting. But, it's all about. It's about connection, isn't it?
Absolutely. All right, Andrew. Thank you so much.
I will catch up with you soon.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.